Hi, this is RX-78, a show where I take a look at some Gunpla and see how authentic they are. This time, we are looking at the HGUC 1-144 RX-78 NT-1. Gundam NT-1 RX-78 NT-1 is the first Federation mobile suit designed for new type pilots to use. But due to the Federation's previous standing on the new type theory and existence, they don't really have much research in them. So when the Augustus Laboratory is tasked to create a Gundam for new type pilots, they didn't put in any cycle mill or similarly high performance interface in NT-1. Instead, NT-1 is just a even more high performance version of the RX-78. To achieve this, they based the NT-1 on the G4 platform with its improved torso arrangement for more power and better cooling performance, at the cost of removing the core fighter functionalities. But in place of the core fighter, they add in the spherical cockpit with its 360-degree full panoramic monitors as well as linear seats to mitigate the extra G-force introduced by the extra thrust from the NT-1. I'll be rating these kits based on saga, style, action, gimmick, and absence. Style is how much does the kit resemble its counterparts in anime, manga, games, or other media. Once again, this is a early HGUC, so it has taken the style more towards the realism, in quotation mark, proportion for mobile suits while maintaining most of its anime designs, I would say, given how Ichibachi sort of designed NT-1 by drawing over the original RX-78-2. I would say this HGUC is mostly correct, but with some early 2000 sensibilities in it. Immediately you can see there is quite a bit of scopes here and there on the NT-1. And that's what I meant when I say the Origin series with their extra scopes isn't too impressive in my opinion, because Bandai can certainly add a lot of scopes if they want to. It's just for the most part on a 1-144, it means that you are not investing into other areas of the kit, which we'll see as we take a closer look. Starting from the head, actually pretty typical with a color separation for the transceiver, V-antenna transceiver, and the chin transceiver. And the head is a standard clamshell, but looks pretty good. Face mask and eyes are one piece, much like of the period, and I use stickers here because it saves quite a bit of trouble, and the effect is pretty good, so I stick with stickers. And as a Gundam, we do get a back camera sticker. The vents on the side are sculpted as well, but no color separation like some modern kits. Down to the chest, we get a color separation for the collar, but no color separation for the shoulder vents, unlike the GM Code District type. Although I forgive it, and I will talk about reasons later. Chest vent got color separation, so as the cockpit. And it's not designed to be removable, but underneath this wrap piece there is a scope for the spherical cockpit for the NT-1 underneath. So if I can pull it out, actually, you can see a bit of a hump right behind the cockpit hatch. That is the spherical cockpit, and they do have scopes for the torso joints. So yeah, they do a lot of this sort of, you can't really see things in early HGUC. And then down to the skirts, kind of plain, but then you got these waist fans, I guess, that are independent of the skirts. I keep the skirts connected. One, they haven't invented the double ball skirts joint for HGUC quite yet at this point in time, and it wouldn't matter later on, so I leave it as is. And we got a part separation for an apogee motor on the side of the pelvis, which is kind of over engineered, but hey, again, very early HGUC, they are just trying to cram in as much things as they can. Side skirt and thigh. Side skirt is one piece, and then the thigh is a left-right clamshell, like the period of last 10 years for HG at this point compared to Rising Gundam. Kinda the only major complaints for me on this one, to be honest, because the lower leg is just amazing. We have the outside in blue, and then we got a knee pad with shin, like very clean, just cover the front surface, and then the inside of the lower leg is one piece by itself, and then the back of the leg as its own one piece. And we get color separation for the thrusters. So yeah, you can see how the blue part is actually a whole part, whole clamshell on its own and clam with the white on the inside. But because you have the back of the leg and then the shin part to cover it, so this is, clever part separation that Bandai wouldn't come back until the EG. It is pretty nice here. Less nice is the foot, as the internal mechanism is white with the rest of the foot, but you don't really see them. There is an ankle mechanism that is in gray. I'm not sure why Bandai, make a larger piece, but oh well, this is what we got. And then on the feet, as usual, very nice scopes. You can see more thrusters. Back skirts, the blocks are, I think they're supposed to be yellow, at least in some illustrations, but you don't really see them, and they look kind of natural with the all white, or at least without painting the vents, all white front skirt. So that's fine. More thrusters. We will talk about this slot later. And then a newly designed backpack, which the backpack isn't quite one piece, but it closes up and forms fairly well. And Bandai pretty much carried this design for the GM Custom and GM Quo and other GMs that influenced by the NT-1's design. And then we got two beam sabers that are actually removable with a beam saber blade slot. To the arms, back of the shoulder is just as nice as the front. The top isn't too bad. kind of weird sculpts on the top, but they're cooking, I guess. Hanging eye is actually one part with the side of the shoulder where you get more apogee motors. I'm not sure why they have to do it this way, but yeah, this started more better multi-part shoulder builds later. The shoulder joint, or the actual shoulder joint, sort of a Ichibachi signature sleeve over it. So yeah, when I see Thunderbolt, those are not new designs. Those are just Ichibachi getting his designs back. Although that joint design does not continue to the arm joint or knee joint. They are kind of standards, but I don't think I see them exactly as is on other model kits. Single piece bicep as usual, and then the forearm, not too bad clamshell for the inside, that's cool. And then we got a single blue fan brace on its own. You can see the gaps here and there, but they are not super pronounced like you see on the origin line sometimes. Sorry. Yeah, this kit is kind of my sticking point to the origin. Overall, between Okawara, Ichibachi, and Katoki, I think this NT-1 HGUC came out pretty well, and it is regarded as one of the better early HGUCs. I will talk about the consequences of that later, but yeah, for style score, standard color correction sticker is just for the V on the crotch, which I'm okay with that being plain, and then a bit of the red on the knee, which to be honest, kinda awkward in the first place. I guess back in the 80s it's more fashionable to have them in red. We see similar design on GB01. And then we also get one of these plastic decal sheets for NT1, which I didn't put on because I'm lazy mostly. And you do want a matte coat, or at least half matte coat on it to make the stickers blend in with the surface. But yeah, pretty nice extra decals for NT1. So yeah, style wise, it is a solid A. Even at the time, this is not the best color separation. Like I said, the shoulder vans got color separation on the GM coded strict type. A lot of the apogee motors are yellow, like the thrusters, like they bother to do yellow on some parts. They, could have at least do a bit more all around, although by the part separation, there's not much to be done. Still, good efforts have been made. Barely an A by today's standard, but definitely A for the period. Next is action. Action isn't just about the number of the articulations, but how useful those articulations are. For the Gundam NT-1, head is the forever ball joint, so you got a hinge on the chest, but it is kind of restricted by the collar, so you're just mostly getting the ball, so that's okay. Shoulder, just a straight pin, more like a GM than actual RX-78, and we got swivel to the side, but it is not super wide. And then elbow, or at least bicep, side swivel, and then elbow 90 degrees. I guess it is 1 year war correct. Hand on a ball joint, which the extended bit actually matters because of the shape of the forearm. Back to the chest, the one pivot in the chest that is also a swivel, but you can actually push it down and lock it in depending on, you know, what pose do you want. And then the skirt, we talk about it. You can certainly modify it, but because of the gimmicks, it's kind of pointless to separate them. Side skirts, you can swing them side to side, and I think you can only, well, you don't really need the up swivel, to be honest. The thigh barely goes 30 degree, 20 degrees sideways anyway, so, the side skirt doesn't really need a lot of work. Not much to the side for thigh, but full 90 degree kick up. The back skirt is solid, so can't do anything. And then we got the typical HGUC double knee, or early HGUC double knee, that you got a bit of movement on the top, but it doesn't really help. And then with 90 on the actual knee. Down to the leg, there is a pivot at the bottom of the lower leg, and then the foot is on a ball joint. Skirt armor is on a hinge, or pinned on both sides of the foot rather. Still more than enough for your thighs 30 degree or 25 degree, 20 degree movement. Backpack, pretty much solid, thrusters can move. And let's starting for the standard procedures, I guess. Super easy, barely an inconvenient. Yeah, I guess, again, not impressive action, but it is, solid and well balanced enough that it can stand on one leg. That, counts for something. And, it is convincing enough that you feel like NT-1 is agile. I will give it B, I guess. A would be slightly too much, given we don't even have actual shoulder articulation on this thing. B is good enough for NT-1 because, as you might be guessing, the strong suits of the Gundam NT-1 isn't really in the action. Next is Gimmick. Gimmick are the onboard weapons, optional weapons, and other functionality of the mobile suit. For Gundam NT-1, primary weapon is this unbullpup FAMAS beam rifle, which is just puzzling all around, but as you might have noticed back then, even with this very flat buttstock, it is interfering with the forearm quite a lot, and that's on the maximum extension of the hand. In fact, what the hand wants to do most of the time is chicken wing the buttstock out of alignment, which is fine on a pose like this, but on firing it is really awkward. Either way, very well sculpted beam rifle. We even have the very realistic channels for the carry handle, and the muzzle is a separate piece. Next is the shield. No Federation emblem, just like the GMs in the Walk and Pocket series, and it uses those, I don't know, period correct, I guess, early HGUC, so there's no need for a, plug. It should just ride those seams. In fact, I'm just going to push it in. Yeah, there we go. So it rides on the seam between the frame brace and the forearm. And you can see the handle there, which we can hook into and then kind of pretend it is gripping the back of the frame brace. We got a bit of storage up the inside of the shield and quite a bit of scopes that we still have today. But yeah, nice to see even back then we got color separations and everything. Yeah, this is the more familiar NT-1 look that you'll see with the shield. Next is the beam saber. Instead of providing clear beam saber blades, they just give you a one-piece white beam saber. You can paint it to the correct pink, but let's put the shield down, pop the beam saber out, and I do have a beam saber blade here. Can it be more secured? Yes, it can be more secured, but you get the point. It sits on the hand just fine, unless you're being very violent about it. But that's not all of NT-1's gimmick. We do have a regular non-trigger finger hand for the right hand, but what I want to show are the Falcon guns. Even larger Gatling guns than the one on the head. As you can see, it's actually pretty awkward for NT-1 to fire them, or at least to show them off. Doing it this way would actually be pretty nice. You have a beam saber ready and then Gatling gun for the bottom. It does make the arm looks a bit thin, but at the same time, fixed weapons are welcome. This is not it for Gundam NT-1. In fact, I am going to put the Gatling gun down. You do get a pair of Gatling gun if you want to do dual wheel Gatling gun on NT-1. That's not it for Gundam NT-1. The biggest gimmick and selling point of the HGUC NT-1 kit is the Chobham Armor, or full armor. I decided to showcase in the video because unlike the later HGUC or just HG in general, you can actually put these on NT-1 by itself, like in a complete NT-1. You can put the new archaic armor, overall armor on, which is something very rare for HG these days, just in general. I do have to take off this hand for a moment. Yep, here is where the slot matters. In fact, I have to raise up. Okay, something seems to be amiss with the front skirts. Okay, now it is cool. And here we have it. Gundam NT-1 all buttoned up with its Chobham full armor. The mask is a SD introduction that doesn't make it into the full size until the MG 2.0. So it's not on this 20-year-old design. But otherwise, yeah, NT-1 is pretty fully close up in this form, but it can still move around pretty much as usual, except for the front skirt, which is kind of awkward. It will fly off, but you just set it back down, I guess. I do want to try to put the shield on, maybe like this. Maybe get rid of the shield strap. Yeah, you can put it on. Rest it on a shoulder armor, actually. That's pretty good. So yeah, gimmick-wise, despite only having a single color beam saber, actually, let's put them back on. Despite only have a single color beam saber, everything else is fully functional. So yeah, very good job. And yeah, the armor is not that hard to take off. You can knock it off on play, but yeah, usually it's not going to come loose. So yeah, a very well deserved S for Gimmick. Last and not least is absence. To be honest, I don't think there is any absence for the Gundam NT-1 for its periods or for HGUC in general. It did a lot of things that even modern HG couldn't do, like the very detachable and attachable extra armor. And the price point, it is on the same 1500 yen, just like Rujimaru or like Lifrith Ariel. But again, back then it's quite a bit, but for today, getting all this playability, even though color separation is really archaic, it is still pretty good deal. Like especially the back, I cannot tell you how much of this good thick rear view you don't get these days. If it had the face mask, nobody would have asked for an update. And here's the problem. Because it's such a well-regarded kit for such a long time, Bandai thought they can do minor updates on it and release the Tristan with pretty much of these archaic builds. But that's the Tristan's problem. We will talk about it when we get to Tristan someday. For this, for now, excellent, like especially with the extra decals that you can put on the shield as well as the extra armor. All these extra triangles are for the extra armor, so as for Gimmick as well. So the verdict for the HGUC RX-78 NT-1 Gundam NT-1 is A for style, B for action, S for gimmick, and S for absence. Overall, a really fun kit, and even considering its age, both modes, or even without considering its age, both modes works well enough that you are pretty much getting two mobile suits in one. And unlike similar offering like the Delinza, you got two very distinct look from NT-1. I briefly talk about the disappointing updates of Tristan. It was released after the Revival Gundam, and I think the Beyond Global is on the cusp of its release. We are looking forward for a update of the HGUC Gundam NT-1 with the face mask and probably the shield hatch that allow NT-1 to fire. Or I think they got a hatch on the Chobham Armor too for the Gatling gun inside for the MG. We are looking forward for that HG update. RG, I guess no core fighter means we can have a solar skeleton, but introducing the Chobham armor on top of the RG armor may be too much. So I think the HGUC NT-1 is still a good option if you aren't ready to start a MG project. For a representation for the scale, this is perfectly fine. Could it be better? Certainly yes, but this would do the job fine for the most part. You don't really get lots of movement when you got the Chobham armor on anyway, so this is how I would left my Gundam NT-1 as a thick boy. Thanks for watching. See you next time.